So good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be connecting with all of you at the seminal event of India Mobile Congress. I'm Sonica Bajaj, and I'm a partner with KPMG in India, focusing on technology, media, and telecom sector. And it is a great pleasure for me to moderate today's Fireside Chat on 5G use cases powering digital transformation. As we all know, 5G, with 5G on anvil, we are actually at a cusp of another major technological revolution, moving from mobile computing towards more of an intelligent and immersive computing. The advancement of innovations are already shaping our lives in this modern era. However, with the advent of 5G, the promises that it brings along of ultra low latency, greater capacity, super fast speeds, we're likely to see a plethora of use cases around B2C, enterprises, and even industrial applications. We believe this is likely to transform consumers, businesses, and society at large. So to dwell into this topic a little more, we've got with us best in class, Mr. Vikas Chhabra from Cisco. Vikas is the client director and a service provider business in India, he and his organization have been working in this space for quite some time. They bring in immense global expertise. He and his organization have been working in this space for quite some time. They bring in immense global expertise, which is now being very successfully applied in India use cases. So we'd love to hear from you, Vikas, on your insights on how you seeing India as an opportunity for 5G. So would love to have a brief introduction from you and also your opening remarks on the opportunity that you see 5G unfolding in India.
Thanks, Sonica. Thanks for the introduction. I think from a Cisco standpoint, Cisco is more of a technology company. And in today's world, technology works as an enabler. So 5G as a new technology that is coming in, it's not just about the speed, right? It's also about what it enables using this technology for different aspects, whether it is consumers that's in the B2C space or whether it is for enterprises. Obviously, we've heard a lot of talk from other panelists and in other sessions about how 5G may be beneficial for consumers, but the business case needs definitely the enterprise side to tie to it, because without that, the investments that telcos make may not be sufficient for them to monetize 5G. So coming in a little more deeper into this, see, essentially we have 4G LTE, we have 5G NSA and 5G SA that we talk about. Now, from a 5G perspective, it's also about what more we are getting. So it's not just in 4G, it's about connectivity. In 5G, it's also more about how much is the downlink and uplink speed. And that's what is driving the use cases per se. And with Cisco's focus is primarily around seeing how customers can benefit from it, how enterprises can benefit from it, and maybe we'll talk more about that as we progress.
Great. Surely, Vikas. So, Vikas, and I think my question to you would be around, as enterprises are identifying 5G use cases which are relevant to them, they're looking at integrated solutions from service providers, which kind of weaves in connectivity and technology together. And that clearly creates an additional scope of partnerships and alliances between telcos and technology companies. So what is your view on how these technology and telco partnerships, what kind of opportunities does that generate, and how does that address the client's requirements today?
So I think the enterprises in India are needing a lot more digitization per se, and the technology is enabling that. How is it doing it? Let me use an example. So in the erstwhile world, when people used to go for field work, essentially, whether in the vertical markets like telcos were to go and address their fixed line subscribers and have, or the broadband subscribers, or the automotive companies would send some engineers at home, or you will have any other white goods company coming and servicing people at home. Earlier it was all with a physical paper based call reports. With 4G LT, people came with handhelds. But how about a new use case which is about a remote expert? A remote expert is a person who physically comes to your house, may not have all the knowledge, but he can have, if the technology can enable that person to physically connect with another person who is an expert sitting in a central location, and he can through a camera show the entire physical location to the remote expert and get the remote expert to work on it. So what Cisco has done is collaborated with a company known as Realware, who have a voice activated helmet, and the field force guy wears that helmet, and using voice commands, he gets a sort of a 6-inch tablet like a Google Glass equivalent thing, and this is integrated with Cisco's WebEx technology from a collaboration perspective. He can dial in, he doesn't have to use a keypad, he just uses his voice command, and he says, I want to take a picture. He can take a picture of what's there. And I'll go specific into the use cases here, Sonica. So the first use case I want to say is that suppose, let's take Bharti. So Bharti has Bharti Infratel, which is a tower company. So they have people who go to the towers to do maintenance. Now, not necessarily any person who goes will have all the knowledge. So if he goes there, he wears a helmet and he says, okay, I need to speak to, so he has an option of calling a remote expert. So if he calls a remote expert who's sitting, let's say, in Gurgaon, and this guy is in Andhra Pradesh somewhere, using the technology which is available as 5G, which enables the higher uplinking speed also, not just the downlink when we download videos or we uplink videos. 5G, the change that it is bringing is primarily in uplinking speed also. It's going to be the 2x or 4x depending on the radio RAN coverage in that specific area. So when that person goes back and calls a person at head office or a central location who can assist this person by looking physically through the camera and saying this is how you need to splice the fiber, one example. Or there are unique cases which industry needs. So unique companies in automotive like Harley Davidson or BMW or Mercedes do not have field force who can go to these locations. So if someone goes using this helmet and can call back even to someone, let's say in Germany for a BMW or a Mercedes or a Harley Davidson, and say this is the problem that we are seeing in this vehicle, and the person can remotely assist to do that. So this is just two examples that I gave you, but there can be remote healthcare, remote logistics related issues, remote mining related scenarios that can be created. So this is an area where we are working with service providers to see how private 5G as a service can be offered by service providers to monetize with Cisco's help on solutions.
Lovely. That seems like a science sci-fi movie brought to life, brought into life. No, but I think that this is a brilliant use cases, Vikas. I mean, just as a follow-up question, how does a company like an organization like yours plan to monetize on the or such opportunities that because these applications will be applicable across industries, across verticals, be it healthcare, be it industry, as you said, be it service industry, so connect. We're already having virtual KYC, there could be other enhancements that can be built onto this. So how do you see an organization like Cisco to monetize on such opportunities?
I think that's a good follow-on question, Sonica. So I think, see, this what we call this is connected field force, or you call it as remote expert. If people look at YouTube, there are many examples for different industries which are live today in the world, which are already there. There are scenarios here, but how do we monetize this? So Airtel and Cisco are speaking about creating a joint offering. A joint offering means there are solution components from Airtel, there are solution components from Cisco. Now, Airtel being a service provider can provide connectivity, but they can also provide a lot more features and stuff for the field force. And in fact, Airtel itself can be a user for this, because when they service their customers on a broadband basis or DTH basis, they can use this service for themselves. It all starts from an app, which itself is something which Airtel's CIO organization is building. The engineering team in Airtel is building an app. They have connectivity. What does Cisco bring into this entire thing? So Cisco's has partnered with Railware, where the helmets are integrated with WebEx. So through the voice activated commands, as I mentioned, you can do it. And what does Cisco do? Cisco has a concept of subscriber data management. The subscriber data management is like you would have heard from other panelists about 5G having network slices. How do you do assurance on that slice so that it's there? And how do you do billing? So assurance and billing and entire subscriber data management from an enterprise control center is something that Cisco can enable. So Cisco works in the back end, creating an offering with Airtel, and Airtel takes this to market. So suppose we take it to Maruti or we take it to a Hero Honda in automotive, or we can take to anyone else. So the monetization possibilities is, this is a service which is known as private 5G as a service, where you create a private 5G network for any of these enterprises or a campus like an Infosys or a Maruti. And Airtel takes the customer contract for this, works with Cisco in the backend to deliver the service. So it's monetizable both for Cisco as well for Airtel.
Wow, with this, I think they're clearly exciting times for us as 5G is likely to unfold hopefully next year. So I think with that, Vikas, we come to the end of the session. It was great interacting with you and getting the insights on the wonderful work that your organization is kind of focusing on and building use cases that are relevant to the industry's needs and specifically relevant for India. But I think just to summarize from some of your insights, around how the telecom industry is at the forefront of a digital revolution, and 5G presents unique opportunities to expand beyond the traditional building blocks that we've seen around access and connectivity, and an opportunity to create holistic technology solutions for the end users. But I think to achieve some of these ambitions, partnerships and collaborations are going to be key. And I think technology players like Cisco can play a major role in enhancing these use cases and the relevance of it to the end customers. So thank you so much, Vikas, for your time today. We've all benefited from the insights that you've shared. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. It's a great honor to be part of the South Asia's largest technology event, India Mobile Congress. I'm Sonica Bajaj, and I'm a partner with KPMG in India, focusing on technology, media, and telecom sector. And it is a great pleasure for me to moderate today's panel session on 5G use cases, powering digital transformation. And I think to start with, we would all agree since the onset of pandemic, companies are witnessing an increase in the penetration of smart devices, wireless technologies, and advanced computing technologies to even operate on business as usual status. These technologies require significant bandwidth to augment decision making, in practically speaking, in almost near real time. While a lot of these capabilities can be delivered through the current communication and networking technologies, 5G is expected to be a game changer. And I think that will enable applications that require ultra low latency and high bandwidth, which, as we see, are emerging needs of the industry. And to dwell deeper on the subject, we have an extremely diverse and competent panel today with us. As a quick introduction, we have with us Mr. Kishore Babu. Mr. Kishore Babu represents the Government of India. He's the Deputy Director General at the Ministry of Communications. In his current role, Mr. Babu facilitates engagement with the digital communication technology companies in the domains of standardization, R&D, and innovation. Mr. Babu is joined by Mr. Amit Malik, Managing Director, Service Director Segment at Cisco APJC. Amit's experience spans over 25 years in diverse industry, and at Cisco, he's responsible for driving sales transformation. We also have with us Sandeep Gupta from Bharti Airtel. Sandeep is the Executive VP of Network Strategy at Bharti Airtel Limited. At Airtel, he's responsible for working on the roadmap for spectrum acquisition, aligning solutions and service roadmap with partner ecosystem. Sandeep is joined by Mr. Rochak Kapur. Rochak is the EVP and Head Enterprise Products and Business Operations at Vodafone Idea Limited. In his current role, he's responsible for defining and executing the strategy of enterprise products, enterprise marketing, and sales operations and digital transformation. We also have with us international representation through Ericsson. We've got Thiaw, who is the Regional Head of Network Solutions for Ericsson market area of Southeast Asia, Oceania, and India. He has more than 20 years of experience in radio access technology, working in both operator and vendor environment. Lastly, but definitely not the least, we've got Mr. Raghavan Sampath, who's the Director of Business Development at MediaTek. He focuses on proliferating of 4G and 5G technology and driving various IoT applications in India. So just to start off the panel, since we have the privilege of having Mr. Babu with us, maybe I'll start with you, sir. Government has a critical role to play in promulgating 5G across the country. And I think it will be helpful if you could elaborate some of the focus areas or priorities that the government is trying to drive as we prepare with the launch of 5G in India.
Thank you, Ms. Bajaj. And first and foremost, let me congratulate the IMC organizers and all the teams who are contributing very significantly here, and my distinguished friends who are here from representing MediaTek, Cisco, Bharti, Airtel, Vodafone Idea, and Ericsson, and many others who are not here. And you have been contributing and investing a lot in Indian market, in building the network, developing the technologies, and causing the technology transformation in every vertical we can imagine, and we don't even imagine right now, considering the importance of 5G. And yes, I agree that there are a lot of expectations from government as well as from industry about what 5G can do for the public as well as society as well as in governance, especially after understanding the kind of role 5G can play as the almost the kind of general purpose technology GPT. So we are looking at how 5G can transform in public in their day-to-day life as well as industries, how they can enhance their productivity and enhance their competitiveness in the domestic as well as international markets, and also most importantly how they can contribute and enhance the quality of experience, quality of life, and considering the broad geographies and diversity and need for mega service sector in the country. Yes, lot many expectations are there, how fundamentally it can alter the way we work, the way we do our day-to-day life, and it can create more jobs, especially in the technology and services sector. And briefly, these are the kind of expectations. I should say they are all round, from everyone when they speak about and listen about 5G, when it's going to happen. That's the kind of how quickly it's going to happen, what it's going to alter. These are the kind of questions are there in every one of his minds. And once again, let me thank all of you. You have been doing tremendously great job in the field what you are pursuing. And thanks a lot once again from the Department of Telecom and Administration.
Thank you, Mr. Babu. Indeed, 5G has the potential of not only enterprise transformation, but actually societal transformation. So moving on, Amit, I think I'll move to you. 5G is expected to open the floodgates of endless digital opportunities for both consumers, businesses, and societies. How are we seeing global deployments achieve this?
Sure. No, firstly, thank you, Sonica, and thanks to the entire IMC team for giving me this opportunity to be with such eminent personalities. It's really good to be here. And that's a very pertinent question, what you asked, right? What's really happening globally? Because a lot of people till probably even about a year ago thought this is probably a myth. Is 5G really going to take off? Right? The good part is there are really good proof points, both in terms of use cases and also the way consumers are using it. I don't know if you read, but very recently SK Telecom published that they added almost about 1 million 5G subscriber in the last quarter, and their operating income was up 22% year on year, which was a very heartening sign for the service provider industry as well. Because one of the reasons why the service provider industry was hesitant is to figure out where is the monetization. Now, we're just talking about consumers. So firstly, the consumer, and there are multiple other proof points, but the consumer are really loving it. Now, let's go on. How is it going to make the other impact, which we spoke about, the societal stuff, we spoke about environment, people, changing lives. Let me give you another example on what's really happening with UK Rail, right? Now, that's another fantastic story, because the way UK Rail is building this out is how can you have something as basic as connected trains, where you can have internal entertainment, etc., all working on 5G, because typically it was always a problem in giving wireless seamless connectivity in high-speed trains, right? How can you connect this trackside equipment all on 5G? How can you ensure that all the platforms are connected? How can you ensure that the video is such that it's high definition? All the platforms are always under surveillance so that you do not have any issues. On top of it, there are a lot of areas around tracks which need continuous surveillance, and it is not easy to do so, but they've started doing that with drones. Now that is good. Now, what if the drone captures and you do not get a real-time solution to whatever the drone spotted? It can cause fatalities, and that's where 5G comes in. They did a rough analysis, and it's almost close to £1 billion of saving. Just the fatalities and the trackside issues is over 200-300 million pounds, which is going to be a saving. Now these are all potential cases. Now these could all be relevant for us as well, because I think that there are two areas where 5G is really helping. One is raising the efficiency of whatever you do, right? Secondly, which is where I'm a lot more excited actually, and which is about creating a platform for innovation. Like Mr. Babu recently said, there will be a lot of people who will get an opportunity. There'll be jobs. There'll be so much more to do, because I've been constantly saying, don't question why 5G. Just imagine, what if you had 5G? What more can you do? Right? If you have that additional bandwidth, and it's always said, you give people something additional, they'll figure out a way to use it very, very effectively. And that's what 5G is really doing, right? How can VR, AR, all of these things impact the smart cities that we have, for example? It's already impacting. We were working with Compal in Taiwan for manufacturing 4.0, industry 4.0, right? Now, this has been having start-stop for a while. And the gap was purely seamless connectivity, low latency. How can they automate with efficiency? Now, this is where 5G plugs in very, very well, and simple things like remote experts. Now, this is something which can be used in manufacturing. It can be used across the industries. There are various other cases. I'll just talk about one more. I know there is limited time. I'll talk about one more, which is again very relevant for India, which is about the entire port automation. Today, if we were to just see that today, majority of our cargo is transported through ports. I think, if I'm not mistaken, 95% by volume is through ports, and about 68% by value is through ports. Now, just imagine if you're able to increase the efficiency by 5 to 10%, the amount of saving is going to be so huge, it is going to be a game changer, right? Similar game changers can be used for airports, for smart cities. We're already doing something around health with Airtel, for example. We've created one of the use cases that we worked on, built a proof of concept, is how can you have a remote ambulance which is connected to hospitals, which measures and transmits real-time all the vital stats of the patient. There's a real-time video analysis. A doctor expert can can get a real-time view, high video resolution, and immediate action. Now, these are things which were not earlier possible, but 5G is making that possible. So 5G is not only changing life, it could also be saving lives. Yeah, I'll take a pause for now and wait for your next question.
Thank you, Amit. Really insightful. Clearly, it's been a game changer globally. But just to get an India perspective as well, I'll move to Sandeep. Sandeep, Airtel has done the 5G trials. Would love to have your perspective on what is the potential that 5G holds for India, and do you think 5G can deliver the massive transformational change that Amit alluded to, where global has been able to kind of create those use cases?
Yeah, thank you, Sonica and the IMC team for inviting us here. This is a great platform with distinguished panelists. It's my pleasure to be here. I think to answer your point, maybe I'll just talk about the context of India first, which is, I think, well known, but just to reiterate, we know India as a market has the highest mobile traffic. We are like maybe next to China, but very high mobile traffic, which is obviously leading to a lot of congestion. And second point, which is in the contrast, is that the fixed broadband and the fiber penetration is maybe the lowest amongst the world. And I think in this context, 5G fits in to start with. 5G really provides the hyper capacity. It provides higher concurrencies. it provides massive connectivities, and then obviously enables services which require lower latencies. I think if we look at our trials, one thing that I certainly want to talk about is the great experience that we could deliver with 200 Mbps and above type of connectivity to fixed wireless terminal at more than 10 kilometers from the cell site. And this is a cell site with 5G. So I think this is where the potential of 5G could start with, which is about providing the connectivity to the businesses and households who have not been able to connect both in urban areas and rural areas, more so for the rural India. And that's where it will be able to bridge the gap between the rural and the urban digital divide. On the business side, again, 5G and MEC, or the mobile edge computing, is really going to bring the industrial transformation, as we've been talking about. And I think this is where the transformation of industries in terms of improving their operational efficiencies, manufacturing efficiencies, logistic efficiencies will really kick in. And again, during our 5G trials, we have launched 5G for business, which is basically cutting across industries, be it connected workforce, healthcare, manufacturing, retail, ports, and even automobile industries. So I think this is where we believe that 5G, along with the MEC and AIML, are really coming at the right time. The whole technology, suite is coming together, which is really going to provide the opportunity for us to provide personalized and contextual services to change the lifestyle of our customers. And I would say, as Kishore Babu mentioned, the efficiencies for our businesses. I think if I just takes a few more minutes and give you an example of what really this trio will really do. And I would love to take an example of automobile industry that we were talking about. Let's say if you start from the life cycle of the automobile industry, you have to buy a car or a vehicle. Obviously the manufacturer has to start manufacturing this vehicle. And this is where it starts. Like the automobile industry can start to have the private networks be deployed on 4G and then evolve to 5G, which really changes the way they can transform their manufacturing processes. They can make this process so agile that you can actually get the understanding of the demand of the customers and make more personalization, personalized vehicles. And you don't have to really do a stream of the whole chain in a particular go. You can actually program the whole manufacturing cycle so that you're able to customize the vehicle as the demand comes in. I think just take it forward. Now the vehicle is on the road. As an owner, you really get the whole infotainment system because of the 5G being pervasive, 4G and 5G being pervasive. So you really get the whole connectivity wherever you go. So the whole infotainment system, entertainment system is all with you. I think that beyond this, if you look at it's not just this whole connectivity, but all the sensors in the vehicle are the opportunities for the automobile industries to really continuously monitor the vehicle and make sure that they are able to give proactive alerts to the owners in terms of what really needs to be done with the vehicle. So rather than having a periodic maintenance, it could be a really need-based maintenance so that you really know what exactly has to be done at what time. And interestingly, you can now digitize the whole spare parts logistic, because you will send the spare part to the place the owner is expected to take the vehicle, rather than just stocking the spares everywhere and anywhere. So you'll have more digital logistics management overall. And I think just from the perspective of the driver or the owner, again, you can understand the behavior of the driver at least. And then the insurance companies come in and they are able to understand the health of the vehicle as well as the driving pattern of the vehicle, and then give you personalized insurance policies and make sure that they're able to cover you properly. So I think if you look at this whole thing, it's like a complete digital way of managing the automobiles as they are becoming an important part of our lifestyle. So this is where I think the power of 5G is, that it really is an opportunity to transform the lifestyles, the businesses, and make an impact to the society.
Great, thanks, Sandeep. I was hoping you'll cover the driverless cars also in your automotive example, but I guess we are still some time away from that. No, but I think great examples and clearly connecting the unconnected and leading the 5G business transformation, connected vehicles, connected devices. I think 5G has got great potential to disrupt the enterprise. But just moving on, Rochak, again, gaining from your experience of Vodafone Idea's 5G trials, what is your view? Which sectors in the country are likely to be early adopters once 5G is commercially available?
Thank you, Sonica. It's my privilege to be part of this esteemed panel. To answer your question, I would like to start by saying that we look at it from two aspects. The first is having a very good understanding of what the technology offers as capabilities, like Sandeep talked about, right? And the next step, logical step of that is, how do we exploit that for use cases or solutions to address enterprises' needs as well as consumers' needs? Bearing in mind that we can do what we know today, while what we create tomorrow will be open to our thoughts, right? What we can think about and dream about. Okay, now coming back to what have we done? The first thing is our trials in Gandhinagar and Pune, we have been able to demonstrate the capabilities of the technology across the 3 spectrum bands that DoT has allocated for trials. Moving on to the next step, we've created use cases working with our partners and talking to our industry-based customers on their needs and seeing what is it that this technology offers in real-world environment, right? That was the key. So what we did, we went around, we created these use cases or trials in actual live environment in the field, addressing various areas of requirements, whether it is Industry 4.0, it's manufacturing, it's education, healthcare, smart cities or safe cities, gaming, and interestingly, even sports education, as well as drone-based monitoring and operations management. And these are real-world things that we did. Just to take you through, in remote healthcare or healthcare, there are 2 use cases that we have actually trialed, demonstrated live. We have done it over a period of time. The first one is exactly similar to what Amit talked about, is the ability to utilize the golden hour effectively to save lives. What is it you can do while the patient is being transported in case of an emergency from the place of the accident or the emergency to the hospital? Real-world streaming, live streaming of audio and video with high definition, live transmission of all the healthcare diagnostics with ECG machines and anything else that you can put on the ambulance, so that the experts at the hospital have diagnosed and probably even on the way provided certain medical interventions that need to be taken by the paramedic. And by the time the patient arrives in the hospital, the infrastructure is ready to take the patient in and start the treatment. And that saves lives. And that is possible because of the high throughput and low latency that this particular technology offers. The second application, and these are connected, we have to understand that the 2 applications can be connected to create a single one, which could be a bigger one. The second application was about increasing the availability of quality medical healthcare across the country. What we trialed is the ability of an expert sitting remotely, let's say in an urban center, to be able to see and talk to a patient in high definition, and at the same time guide a healthcare worker on using a diagnostic machine, let's say an ultrasound in this case, through use of haptics and a joystick available with the doctor. So without any verbal communication, real time, through the joystick, the monitoring of the patient through a haptic device which the healthcare worker wears, and the image directly conveyed to the or transmitted to the doctor for necessary diagnostics and advice. Just imagine the impact it can have in increasing availability of quality healthcare across the country, and also responding to emergencies as and when, unfortunately they happen in the country. The second application that we used, and I'm moving away from healthcare, is on education. Sandeep talked about the availability of 200 Mbps throughput at 10 kilometers from the site, right? Using FWA and EMBB capabilities of the technology. What we did is we created a real live case wherein we took a school which was 10-15 kilometers away, and using VR technology and creating custom courses, we showcased how quality education can be imparted, and access to quality education can be imparted and made available across the country in a real world environment. So there's a real world thing that we did. Another use case, interesting one, and I'm take the cue from what Amit told about earlier on smart manufacturing, right? So we undertook a manufacturing site. We created a digital twin of it using AI and VR algorithms and 4K high definition cameras placed at specific locations inside this and connected over 5G and relayed back to, let's say, over 5G to a MEC, that is multi-access edge compute location, which was at a data center, and the necessary applications, AI algorithms and VR algorithms on it, and then processed the data back to a, let's say, a command and control center where a supervisor could sit, view it on a hologram through a HoloLens, and then see actually what is happening on the tunnel, right? Just imagine the impact it can have. We see such capabilities, while they're created for one use case or an application, the ability to take this to multitude of other industries, whether it is mining, whether it is any safety operation, far-flung operations, anything related to education and training, related to complex operations management, related to supervision, related to guiding a particular person in the field with a particular set of activities, doing audit of complex installations, right? So possibilities, I said, while we trial something, it creates possibilities which are immense, and that's what has excited us. The other key thing we did, this is an opportunity for us to partner with some of the innovators in the country. As part of the trial, for the first phase, we had 2 innovating companies, young startups, participate in the trials. Very interesting use cases, one on imparting quality sports education and making it available across the country, right? Using 5G as a technology. The other one was drone-based surveillance as well as operations management. The drone not only gets controlled on 5G by 5G, but also what it does, transmission of images and real-time transmission of images and AI analytics on it, on top of it, for necessary actions to be taken at data center or the operations center. Similarly, on smart cities, security and surveillance, real-time analytics with 4K high definition cameras. That's what. So the crux is that the possibilities are immense. What we need is an open mind, a framework by which what we learn, we can think about and apply it across various other industries, which is actually limited to the hot and interactions we have with the wider section of the industry. With that, I would like to pause and, I know the time is limited. I can keep on going on. So thank you for that.
No, thank you, Rochak. I think this is really interesting. And your opening comment upon it just kind of highlights that the art of possible is limited to our thinking. Technology is no longer a roadblock for us. So just moving on, Thiaw, would like to get your perspective. You've seen global applications, specifically, but in India's context, we all know there are a wide range of applications ranging from AMBB, MMTC, ORLLC. What is your sense? Are all of these use cases expected to be implemented together, or do you think there'll be a maturity curve that India will have to go through to really implement those ultra low latency requirement applications?
All right. First of all, thanks for inviting us into this panel. Right. I think this is a great question. I always get this question. Right. So I would say the industry is actually exploring all these use cases today globally, but at different scale. Yeah. So probably I first probably give a look at the global EMBB momentum first. Right. Today there are like 180 5G networks globally. Ericsson is quite proud to provide 104 5G live network today, right? And if you look at the momentum, we see great momentum, especially in China and also Korea, right? If you look at the 5G adoption in some of these countries, that there are more than 25% of 5G penetration, right? For example, in Korea and China, more than 25%, right? And globally, also 50% of all these 5G operators actually launch a fixed wireless access. So these two use cases definitely is great momentum, right? And when come to India, we see that actually the smartphone prices actually go down below $150, right? So it is actually entering the mass market now, right? So we foresee that when 5G is launched, the penetration will definitely go up, and also the FWA use case is very relevant in India, right? And when come to the second one, which is come to the massive machine type of communication, right? So the low power wide area type of application is already exists in 4G today. For example, narrowband IoT and Cat-M, right? For use cases that actually required a few kilobit per second or megabit per second, right? And the chipset is actually very cheap, right? Operator just turn on software to enable it. So a lot can be done today already, right? But we also see very good uptick in China on narrowband IoT. It will continue to grow, right? So narrowband IoT and Cat-M will be dominant for many years. So 5G will actually complement when they come in 3GPP release 17, right, where it will introduce the 5G reduced capability, or we call it the NR Lite, to address the segment which actually required a throughput between 10 to 200 megabit per second. Is more to reduce the chipset complexity and complement the space that created by the narrowband IoT and the Cat-M, right? So both narrowband IoT and Cat-M will continue to accelerate and probably implement in scale and relevant for a long time. And 5G will actually come in to address the broadband IoT type of segment. Yeah. So when it comes to the use cases that require very high throughput and low latency, that's where we need 5G, like Amit commented earlier, right? It's actually grow in both the consumer and also industry segment, right? For example, healthcare segment, we see a hospital in Korea today. There's actually live provide the hologram visit, right? Because of a pandemic, you can't go in. They do a hologram visit. AR, VR type of navigation, especially in also the manufacturing segment. Ericsson ourselves also actually did implement the 5G in our own factory in Nanjing, China, and also US, right? So I would say that some of these 5G use cases are very relevant for India, especially in a few segments, right? We do a study with the consultant that area like manufacturing, energy and utilities, public safety, and also healthcare. These are the important segment to address, right? And when it comes to the digitalization on this aspect, right, is mainly focused on this AR, VR type of application, right? So, and those use cases that we actually implement in our own factory, right? And they actually do not need very extreme low latency to work, right? We can actually start with it, and some of the use cases actually evolve along the time, right? So when it comes to the evolution on the sort of these use cases, in near term, we will say that on the URLLC type of use cases, we will see there's more focus on reliability part, right? at the first part. Our operator actually asking us to build something like, how can I actually guarantee my subscriber with certain latency, let's say 30 milliseconds, with 99.999 reliability. Not so low latency, but more on reliability, right? Then, of course, there are some use cases like factory. When you come to the factory, they come to the safety, you require really low latency, right? So I think my message is all these use cases is already started. Yeah? It doesn't require very, very extreme requirement. It can always start with it and evolve over time when the technology evolves. Yeah. Hopefully I share some insight.
No, definitely. And I think India is also likely to mirror some of these trends that you mentioned. Again, from the industrial use cases that we're currently talking about, 4G LTE and some of these narrowband IoT, though they can very well afford to successfully support some of these use cases that you talked about. Great. My next question is to you, Raghavan. Enhancing user experience is one of the key drivers of 5G applications, and would be very keen to get your perspective on what are some of the key steps undertaken by chip manufacturers and equipment providers to kind of ensure improved quality that can support some of these 5G use cases that we're talking about.
Yeah, thanks, Sonica. And it's my honor and pleasure to be on this panel today. And to answer your question, typically we heard all the panelists. They have listed at least 7 or 8 applications around 5G, right? So all the applications require high bandwidth or high throughput, concurrent connections, very low latency. We are talking about enhanced AI, enhanced gaming experience, right? Enhanced multimedia experience, right? So this is all connected to like education, healthcare, live entertainment, AR, VR glasses where you're watching a live sporting event, thousands of people latching onto a 5G network, right? So in order to enhance or give a user experience, quality user experience, there are three elements in a 5G network. One is the 5G infrastructure itself. We are talking about the massive MIMOs and the DUs, CUs, and the RUs, the radio unit and the DUs and the CUs. Then comes the 5G ODCP, the outdoor CPE, the indoor CPE, and the MiFi routers, which is used as hotspots for users to get the concurrent connection and the maximum throughput what we are talking. The throughput or the download speeds of continuous of 200 Mbps with thousands of people downloading or uploading information and data. Last but not least, the first adoption on 5G would be the mobile phones. The mobile phones in India already, even though 5G network is not available, the latest data is India would consume 25 million mobile phones this year already. So 5G network is not yet available as we all know, right? So now how MediaTek and other chip companies are working together to ensure that the user experience is the best in 5G. So let me give you some examples, what we did recently. This week, we announced a world-class 5G premium chipset called Dimensity 9000. So it's on internet. Our CEO launched this chip. And this chip adopts the latest ARM architecture, ARM v9, right? And it's an octal core device. And there are some of the world's first in this chip for your reference. So what are the some of the world's first is the image processing unit, the IPU. The IPU does the camera function and the multimedia capture of the camera and the videos. So what we have integrated is a 9 gigapixel ISP inside this chipset. So you can have 3 concurrent high definition video recordings simultaneously with 3 cameras. And each camera can support up to 320 megapixels. So with this, you could imagine how it's going to change the videography, photography, and the guys who are crazy of taking selfies and the videographs or the social networking folks, right? So this is one of the key image sensing processes we have integrated. In order to give the gaming experience, as Rochak ji said, and we were the other panelists like Sandeep ji. So we have millions of online gamers who want the least latency and the best graphic processing unit on a mobile phone for that matter. So in this Dimensity 9000, MediaTek has integrated the cutting edge ARM Mali graphics 710 graphics processor. So today, this is one of the industry's best graphics processor available in the market. So we integrate this chip or this graphics processor inside this chip again. Then coming to the AI engine. So we all spoke about AI, which has become an essential part of 5G. It could be education, it could be healthcare, it could be real-time analytics, it could be photography for that matter. In photography, you use the AI engine to increase the contrast, increase the brightness, to increase the background or the user experience you are talking about, right? So we have the best AI processor within this chipset, the Dimensity 9000. And last but not least, what we have done is we have integrated the Release 16 modem, right, with carrier aggregation, which supports the carrier aggregation. And believe me, it supports 7 gigabits per second download link. So you could imagine a movie which is getting downloaded on 7 gigabits per second. It would be less than a second, a one full high definition movie, right? So these are the capabilities of the chipset itself. Now, how the infra will pan out, right? Infra should support the 7 gigabits per second download speeds. But what we have seen in India by the trials done by Airtel, I mean, Sandeep ji spoke and Rochak ji spoke, and even we have Jio also doing trials. So most of them have seen at least 500 Mbps concurrent connections on 5G networks. So what I'm here trying to summarize is the technology or the chip companies, the semiconductor companies, likes of MediaTek and many more guys are ensuring that all the ingredients are available in a small 15 mm by 15 mm chip to give you the world's best user experience on a mobile phone. Similarly, the outdoor CPEs, the indoor CPEs, the MiFi routers, and the infrastructure itself. One last point before I pause. For the CPE products which I was referring to, you don't need all the features what you are putting on a mobile phone chipset. So in a CPE, customer premises equipment, right? So it will be a modem, thin modem. We call it as a thin modem, where you remove the multimedia stuff, you remove the display oriented applications and camera related stuff, but you add more of network features. Because the ODCPs, what it does is backhaul, it talks to the infra on 5G, and the LAN connectivity would be Wi-Fi 6. So it's again wireless, but Wi-Fi 6, the latest Wi-Fi 6 technology. So companies like MediaTek or company like mine, we offer Wi-Fi 6 plus 5G thin modem for companies, probably all the CPE, customer premises equipment companies, to put together a CPE in order to give the world-class experience for the users. So we are all set to embrace 5G, and 5G is here to stay and kick for another 10 years for sure. I would take a pause here, Sonica.
Great. No, thank you, Raghavan. It's encouraging to know how the device, the chipset manufacturing, all of that is kind of geared and future ready, future proof for the 5G adoption. While we are nearing towards the close of the time assigned to us, I cannot end the session without asking and getting your perspective on what are the key areas where the industry would need support in creating scalability of some of these use cases that we talked about. Just in interest of time, perhaps if we can kind of each give us just a very brief 1 minute kind of an answer on your perspective on this. And to start with, Mr. Babu, your perspective on, while the government is doing its bit, what is your expectation from the industry to kind of bring this 5G use cases to life in India and at scale?
Thank you, Sonica. In fact, after listening to all of them, the contrast what I saw from last year to this year is that last year it was the the description from the OEMs. This time I'm seeing the experience from the operators who are deploying the use cases, and they are experiencing the real-time benefits. I really appreciate what our friends from Airtel as well as Vodafone shared. Thanks very much. And one area I want to more stress as well as encourage all the industry members through this platform is in June this year, Department of Telecom has liberalized experimental spectrum for manufacturing as well as R&D and other cases, including for establishing the test beds. In fact, now the spectrum for R&D for indoors and manufacturing and as well as demos is available through self-declaration. So in fact, it's through, it is just away from the click of a mouse button at the cost of almost like $70 a year, where you can claim the spectrum and you can start using them. So we encourage more and more industry members deploy the test beds and start creating more use case scenarios and start working on them. And we really want to learn from you that what else more you need with regard to working on this. Yes, as some of you mentioned about investment as well as scale, these are some of the very important things. Yes, please do share with us your inputs about what is that we need to do more on use case front and how we can facilitate you across the sectors. In fact, we already started working with other ministries as well as other centers of excellence, including from operators, how they can make use of this opportunity window. So we are available to support you from the industry facilitation, and do please feel free to get to us for any kind of support you need. Thanks very much, Sonica. I would like to listen from others as well.
Thank you, Kishore. Amit, do you want to share your opinion?
Absolutely. And I think this was my observation as well. And this is something which we are seeing globally now. There was a time where we were talking about how will people monetize, but now there is use case across the spectrum. You pick up an industry and there is a use case there. Yeah. But what I want to say is, and this is what I started off with, one should start seeing this as a platform for innovation, right? And that is where the entire ecosystem needs to come together. It is not about a vendor. It is not just about the service provider. It is about the industry, the ministries, the academia. They play a very important role as well. So I think the government is already doing a lot. I know there's a lot of test beds being set up, But I think there has to be a little more homogeneous way of working there, which will allow for use cases which are very specific for this country. That is one. The other thing which is really going to give us significant impetus, and that's what we're seeing in countries like Germany, Japan, etc., is the concept of the private networks, right? And I think at some point, to ensure that the 5G proliferation happens even faster, there has to be somewhere where SPs, the service providers, and the industry will come together. Industry will set up private networks as well, which obviously will be collaborating with the service providers there, so that they have a better control. A smart city, for example, could be one separate private network. Industries, we are already seeing automobile, etc., setting up private networks on 5G, which is allowing them to scale much faster. They will not have the wherewithal to do a lot of it on their own. They'll definitely work with the service providers, but to give it a space, because speed is also of essence. Because the longer you delay, you fall behind the curve. If you have to go ride the innovation, you also have to have some pace around what you decide. And private networks is probably one of the areas where the government should actually look at seriously.
Great. Thanks, Amit. Clearly, collaboration is going to be playing a key role as we move further in this 5G deployment. Sandeep, your views?
Yeah, thanks, Sonica, for bringing this up. And maybe before I talk about what we as an industry would request, first, I think we'd like to appreciate and again reiterate our gratitude to the government for bringing out the right incentives and the policies for the sustainability of the industry. So I think that's certainly a very good move. I think continuing on the same path, as we typically say for 5G, the raw material is spectrum. So I think if we get the right adequate spectrum at the right pricing, and certainly spectrum for both access network and backhaul network, given the paucity of fiber that we have in India, I think we really need to have the right spectrum both on the access and the backhaul side, which is what I call it as E-band spectrum. We know about that. So I think both of them will be very, very relevant. On our side, what I think we are doing, just to kind of also share about this collaboration piece, is we already have, and we're expanding on the 5G lab, where we would certainly invite more and more startups as well as application partners to come in and test their application on the 5G infrastructure that we can provide in this lab. So I think, again, we've been working closely with DOT in terms of how we can bring the startups. And I think the key message here I would like to leave is that 5G will really need the right collaboration. I think we need to reduce the overlaps between different organizations working and bring this collaboration in a manner that everyone gets a right fair share of the value that we create towards our customers, be it enterprise or the retail customers. Thank you, Sonica.
Thank you. Rochak, your views, please.
Yeah, sure. So adding on to what the esteemed speakers have already said makes my life more difficult. I would like to add actually two points. The first one, adding on to what Amit talked about, what we see is private networks increasingly for enterprise use cases are going to become very important. And as telcos and as industry, it is very important for us to ensure that access to such private networks is not just limited to the large enterprises, but should be available to anyone and everyone, including the entrepreneurs. And I see telcos as a central point who need to focus on it and should be part of this and actually lead in this charge to ensure that anybody who is innovating has access to a private network or is able to use it, just limited by availability of funding. The second thing, and adding on to what Sandeep said, we believe that in our journey from a telco to a techco, it is going to be about collaboration. It is going to be about creation of an ecosystem of partners who bring in their respective expertise, whether it is the industry domain expertise, expertise on IT or OT systems, expertise around AI, data sciences, AR, VR, to be able to collectively collaborate and create those innovative solutions that are required. And that is the steps that we are taking at Vodafone Idea in our journey from a telco to a techco. And we've demonstrated that as part of our trials, where we did it through an ecosystem of partners, which also included the entrepreneurs, which are part of the DOT hackathon. And we are continuing to work with more of them to ensure that they're also part of this race and ensuring that Make in India is a bigger success. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Thiaw?
Yeah, I think this is a very relevant question, right? So I think first point is 5G use cases actually require a lot of collaboration from the CSP, the equipment vendors, enterprise, and also academia to continue to explore the new ideas, right, to make it a success, right? So we see that even 5G is live, but then in UK, those sort of a collaboration that we have done, in order to make the AR VR glasses, you need the sort of the manufacturing plant to have those software to be into the AR VR, only it will works, right? So it is really across the industry to collaborate to make it work, right? And second point is I echo what the Sandeep must say, right? I think the availability of a larger chunk of spectrum is important, and also not only that, but the all spectrum band, right? On the low band, on the mid band, also the millimeter wave to ensure the coverage, the capacity, and the very high speed is actually it can be addressed, right? And the third one is, of course, in some of the country they actually set up some 5G garage, like in Singapore, right, to encourage the entrepreneur to sort of explore the ideas and try out new ideas in those 5G garage, right? So there's some of the very good initiative that can be tried out in India. Thanks.
Great. Raghavan.
Yeah, being last is disadvantage, Sonica. So it looks like everybody has summarized what I wanted to say, but re-emphasizing collaboration would be the key. And if you look at the stakeholders, there are multiple stakeholders here. So we have government bodies, we have agencies who is drafting the specifications or the requirement itself. Then we have the telecom service providers, then the equipment manufacturers, hardware vendors, software vendors, academia, ecosystem partners. In order to make 5G successful, right, India should come together and ensure that there are no differences. We follow the global standards like 3GPP 16 release or the 15 release, and ensure we work together to ensure, make Atmanirbhar Bharat on 5G. So we should all come together as ecosystem partners and work towards a common goal, making 5G a more successful technology in India and for India.
Great. Thank you so much. I think with that, we conclude today's discussion. Thank you, dear panelists, for your valuable insights. And basis our discussion, I think we can clearly conclude that, while India may not have been the front runner in 5G adoption, but it clearly stands to benefit out of more mature use cases and more business, numerous kind of prototypes that we are kind of now creating for the nation's use. Of course, collaboration is critical. Partnership and alliances are going to be playing a key role. And I think as some of you mentioned, the government and the industry has to kind of come together and in the whole spectrum pricing, price discovery to ensure some of the long-term and short-term benefits are kept in mind, and affordability is kept in mind, while we decide on this key decision. So I think thank you everyone for your insights. I would also like to thank IMC on behalf of all the panelists. This is a great platform for the industry, government, key stakeholders to come together. And yeah,